Con Stathopoulos and Josh Meakin come together in an incredible podcast, Grow, Scale, Master.
An energetic approach to drive progress, master skills, build strengths and put the strategy back into rapid business and personal success.
Backed by real-world experience in rapid scaling to playing the long-term game of business, it's the story of all the lessons learned on the journey to mastery.
Be inspired, renew your energy and chase the future with Grow, Scale, Master.
Con, one of the most powerful moments as a coach and, being able to work with a lot of people is to go and see those great business turnarounds. And, it's pretty common that you'll meet someone who's in a position of vulnerability, but they project a position of strength. And it's not until maybe 6 months or a year down the track that then you realize what the moment they were actually going through, but they didn't want to necessarily reveal all that vulnerability at that particular point in time because there's natural protection around that. But then ultimately you have a conversation with someone around committing to the core of what actually runs a really good quality real estate business. And whether or not you're a property manager, front operations or sales or you're in a leadership position inside of a business, it's about understanding that literally you're only one or two decisions away from a completely different game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I say that to people. It's like, when you meet someone, they go, I'm down and out, I'm not sure real estate's for me. And I'm like, and if 5 new listings had turned up on your lap in the course of the last 24 hours, where would you be? Man, I'd be on the podium, I'd be taking the number 1 award, I'd be doing all of those things. So let's talk a little bit about it because sometimes we talk about comparison and I have a belief that comparison is really useful if it inspires you. But I think it's kind of useless if it drives your insecurities. And when I have a look at some of the greats of our industry that have built either really big businesses or that have written substantial amounts of fees, either over long term or even just over the course of 30 days, I don't get jealous by that. I don't get driven by insecurity by that. What my mind turns to is how did they do that? What were the foundational systems or the things that they had in play or the relationships that they leveraged or the marketing that they did? Are there any lessons for me that I could go and put into my business to go and do that?
Yeah.
What do you think about comparison and its usefulness to be able to allow you to be able to grow up the levels and to use that as fuel to have a great business turnaround?
I think, Josh, the thing that I take from an observation perspective is that 30, 60, 90, 120 days ago, someone made a decision to decide that they wanted to go pro. So there's no surprise when you start seeing an agent getting into full momentum, listings, sales, etc. It's the work that they did that's invisible 30, 60, 90, 120 days ago. So for me, what's really interesting to watch, when I just literally got off a call with one of our agents that's out of momentum at the moment. They had an incredible quarter one. For this year, and they've kind of rested on their laurels, and what got them there won't get them to that next level. And I think comparison is a really, like you said, it can either motivate you or demotivate you. But the thing that's interesting to me is at what point did they make that decision to decide to go pro? Okay, and then what were the steps that they actually did? So I think from my perspective, it's very interesting watching agents and businesses that go out of momentum and into momentum. That real estate roller coaster ride, that's all about doing the basics every single day and mastering those and falling in love with the routine that will actually get you those results, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sometimes there's a moment in life where you're forced. So we got to call that the turning point.
Yeah.
So something's happened.
Yeah, burning platforms, that type of stuff, right?
Yeah, it could be that literally all of a sudden there's a huge tax bill that's come in, or maybe you're in a position that something's happened at home, or there's something wrong in a partnership, or maybe something's happened, and all of a sudden that turning point forces a completely different set of decisions and really is about that decision to go all in. You hear a lot of people with backup plans, if real estate doesn't work out for me, I could go and do this, or, I've always thought about doing that, rather than actually learning to become a master at what they do. How important is it to get rid of the backup plans and to go all in on, just becoming the best version of what you can be inside of the role that you're playing today?
Critical. If you want to make this a professional career, then you have to push all your chips all in. We are so fortunate and we should be so grateful for the opportunity that we get, because if you nail this, it's life-changing, right? And it's very simple, this industry, but it's not an easy industry. So the best success that I've seen with agents is that when they get rid of all of those distractions, my plan B and what if this doesn't work out, I can always fall back to this, maybe I do that. The ones that are actually mastering their skills, every single day. They're sharpening their sword. They're turning up with the right energy. So we're talking about decisions, right? So I made a decision to decide to have the energy that I've got today. Now, irrespective of what happened at home or what's happening in my life, I get a choice. So that choice for me is really important because I choose to be the best version of myself. I choose to turn up every day. I choose to prospect in the AM and have face-to-face meetings in the PM. I choose to actually have an accountability partner and be coached and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think once you make that choice, that's when you go from being interested in real estate to being committed. And once you're committed, you're unstoppable.
I had a quick look at like what I go to call like critical decision points that have forced these turning points in a lot of people that I've seen. And sometimes it might be situational based things. So there's a market condition. Yep. All of a sudden there's just 5,000 extra pieces of listings available and there's not a single buyer about. That's an interesting conversation. Sometimes it's a lifestyle thing. You know what? I've reached that point. I just don't want to push that hard. I do want to spend more time with my kids or with my partner or something along those lines. Sometimes it's a life event. Touch wood, but a heart attack, a stroke, something that's actually happened as a part of those conversations. And then there's other people that are just inspired for growth. So they like, and I think about that as that, there are two people that come to a conference. One person leaves and goes and writes an extra $1 million, and the other person leaves the room as though they're completely unimpacted by what's actually going on in that room. And, do you have to wait for an event to happen? Or can you actually go and read some things and get exposed to things to actually use that as the fuel to jump ahead rather than actually having to have a major life event occur?
I think it depends on you as a person. I mean, a lot of people do get motivated by that major life event. They've just had a child or they're going through a divorce or they've got financial stress or they've got health issues, and that's kind of the motivator, but it can also be the demotivator too, right? So I guess you get to choose your own adventure in life.
Yeah, sure.
And so from my perspective, the best success that I've ever had in my career, whether it's been in or out of real estate, is when I've made that choice not to have the life event, but to actually go pro. Okay, so to actually turn up, as I said before, right energy, right decision making in terms of how I'm going to spend my time and where I'm going to spend it. Who am I hanging out with? What am I listening to? What am I reading? What am I attending? What am I actually doing? So in terms of my skills development. But the biggest thing with this, the biggest driver, Josh, is will. Your will to be wanting to turn up every single day and try to be the best version of yourself. Now, Monday might be a fantastic day and Tuesday might be an 8 out of 10 and Wednesday might be a 7 out of 10 and Thursday might be a 5 out of 10. But I kind of look at it and I go, you've got an opportunity every day to not so much repair the past or wrong what's happened, Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday. You got an opportunity today to be able to be impactful. And that might be just great conversations that lead to, the permission to speak to them in a week or 2 or 3, or maybe it's, a bit of extra data, or maybe it's someone subscribing to an e-newsletter or whatever it might be. It doesn't always need to be about a BAP, a MAP, LAP, buyer appointment, market appraisal, or listing appointment.
Yeah.
So I think what we do is we get into the habit because of instant gratification. We need that. I need a listing appointment today. Doesn't work that way. I would rather go, how many great conversations can you have today? How many, how much extra development personally can you put onto yourself? I mean, if you're in a sauna or if you're training or if you're in the train or in the car or whatever it might be, are you listening to a podcast? Are you doing something positive that's going to help you move forward and move your clients forward?
There's an interesting, powerful conversation around scarcity mode or abundance mode. So when you see someone with a poor set of behaviors that are destructive around themselves, that don't have good quality routine, they often walk into a training session with a can of V or a can of mother, right? Like that's how I can tell straight away.
Yeah.
What straight away is that that's usually someone who is going to be below their safety line.
Yep.
So if for example, it costs you 10 grand to live a month, if you've got less than 10 grand in the bank account, there's massive problems there because the washing machine breaks, the fridge breaks, it's the world ender. And, when someone's in a position of they're trying to work out how they're going to afford lunch, how do you actually go and set up an environment for success to be awesome on the phones that day?
Yeah.
And so this is the interesting conversation is that then when you get into abundance mode, if you have 100 grand in the bank, then all of a sudden you don't have to worry about those things, but you've got to be hungry to go out there and achieve. And so there's a delicate balance of actually knowing of how much money do I need to have in the bank between keeping me hungry versus being in a position that I just feel, a bit lazy because life is good, right?
Complacent.
And so the interesting conversation is that what you're talking a lot about here is what we've got to call transformational behaviors. So if you think about it, beyond just thinking of markets to what are the transformational behaviors that I could go and have today. So if I'm in a position that my market has stopped, the transformational behavior is great price reductions, really good conversations around marketing, doing really good quality buyer work, getting back on the phone with all the previous buyer inquiry we've had over the last few years, find the person who actually wants to do the deal. And I have this little saying in my head, you got to wanna. So I got to, it's probably not the Queen's English, but I got to find the person who wants to do the transaction today.
Yeah,
so 60% of transactions happen regardless, births, deaths, marriages and divorces. So if you can find a stat that you can hook on to something and get some solid work, it would change. Now, I read a stat the other day that in Australia, over the course of the first 90 days, what had actually happened is that we have found that 16% of the transactions, right, so effectively 1 in every 6 transactions, the vendor bought the property in the course of the last 3 years.
Right.
So that says to me that with changes in interest rates, there's the opportunity, get on the phone, go and ring every single person who's bought from you in the last 3 years. If they follow the national trend, that's 1 in every 6 of those people that should come to market today. So learning that mortgage rates are up by 70%, a $10,000 home loan is now $17,000 a month, like that's why people would be doing a transaction. But off the other side of that, we've got heaps and heaps of people coming to Australia, population growth, we've got people that need to do a transaction, people that are having a baby that are ready to do it. So literally now's the time to go and strike. So transformative behaviors is about what 1 or 2 things could I do that if I just committed to that very simple discipline would change everything for me. And often when we do the 30-day intense, the thing that we see is the biggest business turnaround is the commitment to a great call list with clarity of purpose, with intent to get in front of people. And when you get in front of people, it changes how you sound, it changes how you feel, it changes how you act. And the busier that I get you will strike gold at some point.
Absolutely.
Right? And
100% agree.
But a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have a bus. That's why there's no bus ads. That's why I'm not successful.
Or the letterbox drop's not perfect, or it might be.
Or my brand won't let me put my photo on the signboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like all of those things that actually come into the business. Now, that's kind of an interesting conversation that literally a great business turnaround can happen at any point. And literally sometimes you can just wake up in the morning and decide that you want more. And the interesting conversation is that literally don't settle for a life that literally, when you're much more capable of something that you could go out there to go and create in terms of destiny.
You can do it right now.
Yeah.
You just need to make the decision and you just need to act. It's as simple as that. And I know it might sound, completely basic, but the genius is in the simplicity of what we do. Mm-hmm. If you just followed exactly what you just said with your past clients and, buyers that you're meeting in market right now, just pick up the phone, start a conversation that builds into a relationship, get a couple of market appraisals, you get more confidence, you're in market. So you're actually looking, you've got great research and market data in terms of what's being listed, what's being sold. You get a listing, your confidence gets up, you get the next one, the third one. Now, guess what? You're opening 4 or 5 properties on a Saturday, you're in full flight momentum, and then momentum breeds energy, energy breeds more listings and sales, and that's how it goes. It's very, very simple.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I think it's the old W. Clement Stone quote, and it's something along the lines of, it's got very little to do with the attitude of the prospect and everything to do with the attitude of the salesperson.
Absolutely agree with that. Experiences that rapidly shaped you.
Con, one of the most amazing things that we ever did as a business is that we were over in America and we'd seen a conference where some people got up on that stage and they got to share the story of what they'd done to actually build a really good quality business.
Right.
And it was actually pretty amazing because what would actually happen is that, you felt really inspired to see that they'd used a set of tools or a set of methodologies or approaches that you were aware of. They'd gone all in and they'd achieved, rapid and incredible success. We came back to Australia and I said to my head of marketing at the time, we should do that. And so we created this concept of the Changed Agents Award. And, it was pretty amazing because you would go out there and you say, hey, look, if you've been to training or seen something, then we want you to come and share the story about what you've actually done. And we had this guy who was the first ever Change Agent Award winner in Australia. It was pretty amazing. He came to come and see me, and I didn't know this at the point, but he came into the office. He was a bit stressed. There was a bit of tension there, and I just literally we focused on some basics and some things that he could do, and naturally, things kind of changed. And he then went and wrote great fees, and he then went and got up on stage and he spoke at Change Agents. And I had not really thought too much about it. I know that he'd see me every month, and we'd had some good quality conversations, but a lot of it was about new behaviors and new considerations of what he wanted to do. On that stage, he revealed that at that moment when he came to see me, he had been to a CPD training conference the week before, and he was trying to get out of the car park and his credit card was denied.
Oh, wow.
And so his car couldn't actually leave the car park. And the car parking fee was like $15. And he was in a position that he was overdrawn by a couple of $100,000. He hadn't paid superannuation on his staff. He was in a position he owed money to the tax office. He was 9 months behind in the rent on his office. So like literally he's one locksmith away from being locked out of the office.
Right.
And the interesting conversation is that, we now fast forward, 5 years down the track after that had happened. He'd paid out the superannuation. He'd paid out the tax office. Not only he paid out the landlord, he'd also bought the building. He'd paid off the building and he had $1 million in cash sitting inside of his savings account.
Wow.
And the interesting conversation is that literally I didn't know that at the time, that was the situation that he was going through. And he was very proud. Like he didn't want other people to be aware that was what was going on. And he was actually very embarrassed that he'd got himself into that position. Grew too quickly, didn't monitor the numbers quickly enough, thought that opening a second office would be the answer. Did all of those things and just didn't have maybe the acumen or the skills or the nous that he does today. And naturally now has really learnt where he went wrong. Also, too, there was the GFC and, we never expect the market to come off. And when it does, you've always geared your business around the best situations. Over watching that now, over, 15 years over the course of running that, I'm absolutely amazed that every single time that someone gets up there on stage, that there's often substantial amounts of vulnerability and things that I was completely unaware of that was actually their turning point.
Yeah.
And that turning point for greatness is to realize that, for you, it's about making that decision that no matter what is happening in your world, what are the one or two behaviors and decisions that you're putting in front of yourself that if you did that compounding and you started to think about the impact of that over 300 days a year, what would that do to go and change a business? And I think that kind of, it leads us to you that you have this great conversation around people being capable of more in the video game of life.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great segue to that because I do believe we're all capable of more. I mean, it's really interesting. One of our partners in the business and one of our top agents, we have our Super Saturday, as the auction event at the beginning of each year, and they'd never done any more than 6 auctions, and then they did the first one and they had 8, and then they went to 10, and then they went to 12, and then this year they had 17 auctions. And I kind of look at this as the video game of life, that we get to a point where we might think we've, mastered where we're at in terms of performance, personally, professionally, whatever it might be, but that's just level 1. Level 2 is just waiting for you to unlock it. And then once you get to level 2, you're like, okay, man, I remember what level 1 was like. Level 2 is easier, better, it's faster, it's, more profitable, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And then you think that you've mastered level 2, and then guess what? Level 3 pops up.
Yeah.
And level 3 might be, a bit of turbulence. It might be a few speed bumps. It might be, a few losses. It might be something that's going to challenge and push you. But then you finally go, man, I clocked level 3. Now I'm at level 4, and level 4 is bliss compared to level 1. And I just think for us that wherever we're at in life, whether we're at the peak of our game or whether we're struggling to get into momentum, we are always capable of more.
And question for you, Con, I know this is pretty full-on question without notice. Did you ever save the princess in Mario Brothers?
I think I did, mate.
Because did you remember, because you had to go from level 1, it was 8 levels in that thing.
That's right. I found the secret levels.
Yeah.
That was the best game, wasn't it?
But it was good for me because I knew you only had to go one direction, which was right. It was very clear.
That's exactly right.
But do you know what? Like literally the level of accomplishment once you'd done level 8 was insane.
Incredible.
Yeah. But I could never get past level 1 for ages.
But I think that's a great analogy for life. You can't ever clock life. And, when you think you've actually hit your straps or you think you're at your lowest, you're actually capable of a lot more.
Something that's changing your view.
Con, one of the interesting things is that we live in a distraction society, and it's those that can hold attention are the ones that win. And I love this as a conversation around what would actually happen if you turn the notifications off your phone. So I'm saying, okay, great. The only notifications that I now have available on my phone are for an SMS, for my maps, or for my calendar appointments. So naturally, I have no notifications on for anything else. And the level of freedom that it gives you is insane. And then could we go, and I'm not there yet, but could we go one extra level that emails are now no longer done on your phone and are only done on a desktop or a laptop type device? So literally for all the perception of the gains that you've made in productivity, how much productivity have you lost because you're actually in a position that you're getting caught into the death loop of being involved in your digital device rather than actually having it in a position that it's a tool for when you need it as opposed to a tool that constantly needs you.
Love this. And I think you're actually talking to me. I've got an Apple Watch and I turned off all the notifications because it kept vibrating. And if I was in a meeting, I'd be looking at my watch going, what's going on? And I absolutely will be turning off my notifications. Email, not sure yet. but we'll get there. But I absolutely love this concept because, I mean, you're right. The productivity gains, I don't think we've actually realised the losses that we get with this as well. And, your phone addiction and, being connected, these things are the most personal things. We carry them everywhere with us, but we need to be able to use them effectively and not be a slave to them.